Now, over the last couple of years, you may have seen many different news reports and articles linking different foods cooked at higher temperatures with cancer. And this includes both plant-based foods, i.e. carbohydrates, as well as animal foods. And I will cover all of these different foods and their associated risk factors in today's video. So seeing as I'm never going to go raw, because quite frankly, why would you? And show me anyone who is thriving on that diet, I thought it's a valid question to ask whether it's time for me to consider ditching the carbs, as many of the carbs that I eat are fried or baked at higher temperatures. Roll the titles.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As always, just a quick reminder that I'm now offering the SIBO, organic acid, stool tests and consult via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests, as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track. And on that bombshell, to the video. So if we start with plant-based foods, it is generally advised by many health organisations around the world to only cook carbohydrates until they're yellow or turn slightly brown. The reason for this is that when you cook carbohydrates at high temperatures, particularly things like potatoes and chips, a molecule is formed called acrylamide. Now, it needs to be stated here that while the chemical acrylamide is known as a toxin and carcinogen in its industrial form, the link between small amounts of acrylamide in foods and humans developing cancer is a very tenuous link. Now, before we explore acrylamide further, it is really important and also interesting if you know the backstory of how scientists started suspecting its links to cancer. So if we go back to around 1996, railway workers were building a train tunnel in southern Sweden. In the fields next to the construction site, some cows started to develop some very bizarre symptoms, which included losses of balance, staggering around, and some of the cows were also collapsing and dying. Rightly so, an investigation was carried out, and it was shown that the cows had been poisoned after drinking contaminated stream water that had very high levels of acrylamide that originated from the railway tunnel construction site. I don't know the full ins and outs, but I believe the construction company had been using acrylamide's polymer, so polyacrylamide, as a crack sealant. Polyacrylamide had been considered very safe for humans, and it had been used in construction for many years. During construction, the polymer forming reaction was not complete, and there was a relatively high amount of unreacted acrylamide at the site. During the investigations, the construction workers' bloods were checked to see if they had high levels of acrylamide present, and these were compared to a control group of people that had not been exposed to acrylamide at the construction site. What the scientists found shocked them, because the control group, i.e. the people who were not the construction workers, also had very high levels of acrylamide in their blood. After looking at the control group's diets, the scientists initially suspected the high levels of acrylamide originated from meat such as burgers, as many of the people were eating these types of foods on a consistent basis. The scientists continued their research and also found that high levels of acrylamide were also present in foods such as fried chips and also roasted coffee. Over the coming months and years, scientists discovered that acrylamide formation at higher levels was typically associated with carbohydrate-rich foods rather than protein-rich ones that had been fried, cooked or baked at temperatures over 120 degrees Celsius. Now, typically, acrylamide is generated when reactions occur between the natural amino acid asparagine and some naturally occurring carbohydrates. And we also know that you really don't find acrylamide in foods that have been boiled or have not been cooked. Now, I will get to the meats in a second before all of the carnies chime in, but meat, fish, poultry and dairy are less likely to contain acrylamide, but like I said, I will get to these in a minute because they also have problems when cooked at higher temperatures. The other things that are important for you to remember is that it makes zero difference if the food is organic or not where acrylamide is concerned. And also keep in the back of your mind that acrylamide is also generated as a byproduct when somebody is smoking, so it is obviously something that you should not overlook in your diet. Now, this doesn't mean for 1 minute that you have to ditch chips or you can never eat a baked potato in your life again. Far from it. Scientists generally recommend cooking food until it turns yellow and not black or brown, and when you follow these rules, acrylamide formation is very limited. Now, while all of this sounds worrying, and the carnies will cite this as a reason why you should avoid carbohydrates, science has never established a link between higher levels of acrylamide in the diet and also cancer. In 2015, a large meta-analysis looked at the links between acrylamide in human diets and cancer risk, and the scientists concluded dietary acrylamide is not related to the risk of most common cancers. A modest association for kidney cancer and for endometrial and ovarian cancers in non-smokers only cannot be excluded. These numbers, though, were obviously very minuscule. Now here the scientists analysed 32 different publications and found no cause and effect and only very tenuous associations at best. So before I discuss whether I will be modifying my dietary patterns moving forward, let's take a look at cooking meats at higher temperatures. Now, while meats cooked at higher temperatures typically contain low levels of acrylamide, which is obviously very good, they do contain chemicals which fall into two classes, which are polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and also heterocyclic amines. The polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are generated when fat in the meat is heated, and this drips on flames of a barbecue, for example, and heterocyclic amines are generated when meats are cooked at higher temperatures, either baked or fried, when reactions occur between amino acids and also sugars. Now, while some studies do show that there are higher prevalences of cancer when a person eats meats that have been cooked at higher temperatures, and there are obviously animal studies that have also shown these links, it is a similar story to carbohydrates being cooked at higher temperatures in that these links are very tenuous. For me, I think there are much more obvious things to point towards for concern for those eating animal foods, such as saturated fats, hemine, IGF-1, etc, etc. And I think that these links are a lot less tenuous, as demonstrated in the science and recommendations we see concerning meat intakes around the world. So now to the main point of this video, is it now time for me to consider low carb? Based on the fact that I eat higher carb and many of the carbs that I eat are cooked at higher temperatures? And the answer is a categorical no. The outcome of any diet is not governed by one constituent part. You have to look at the totality of the diet and the nutrition that it contains. Yes, I obviously don't recommend that anyone eats a lot of any food that is overcooked or burnt, but should I or should you be concerned about eating the occasional chip that is burnt? Absolutely not. Enjoy your food and enjoy your carbs, as the evidence is there to support them, and be more concerned with the macro problems with health, such as stress, poor diets and inactivity, over the micro of eating an occasional bit of burnt grub. Anyhow, that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out this one up here, because I'm sure you'll find it equally interesting. And the only other thing that's left for me to say is to remember to look after your body, because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.